since you singled me out as being the wrong approach, I'll start. What the question is trap size. You know, you can catch them in a Jake or a number 5, or you can catch them in a 1.5 or smaller. Where's Tommy? Tommy Bryant catches coyotes in 1.5 Victor soft catches, which a lot of people would think was not even a muskrat trap, but obviously it works, right? So I trap in snow and ice and rain and mud. And my Jake trap usage or any big, strong, no BS, whatever it is, has nothing to do with holding a coyote. It only has to do with busting up through and grabbing him in the first place. That's all I want from that trap. After that, you could hold him in a 450 or 1.5, get him by 2 toes, you got him, assuming you're anchored right and swivels and all that stuff. So for me, it's just a matter of grabbing him in the first place. You know, when I'll set trap today and it'll start raining around dinner time, and then around midnight it'll start snowing and change over. And I'll wake up in the morning and I'll have this much snow on my traps, right? So when an animal, let's say there's no snow, when an animal steps on a pan, any pan, his pad is right on the steel pan, right? If he's got 2 or 3 inches of snow, that trap will still go off. But when he pushes down, his foot will compress that snow to about 1 inch above it, and that trap comes up, but I still got him because I'm coming up with 6 inches of instead of 3.5 or 4.5 or whatever it is. So it's really about grabbing them, not about holding them. If I trapped, when I was down with June and Rusty Johnson in Texas, and I was setting my big jakes, they were all running MB550s, and it was sugar sand and wonderful stuff, and I'd probably use the same thing. I think a jake would almost be overkill, but I would probably use them just because that's what I'm used to.
I'm going to agree with Mark on that. If I was trapping at home in South Dakota, I'm going to be running my bigger traps. I'm going to be running my NJ600s or something like that at home. But when I'm down south, I'm coming through the dirt. It's not freezing. I don't have any of that to deal with. And it doesn't matter when you're down south in that clay dirt. If it rains, if you got a MJ600 or MJ450, it ain't coming up anyway, because once it rains and that clay sets, it's concrete. They ain't coming up anyway, you know. So, but it's that trap size is very relative to where you're at. And down south, you know, talking about fighting a catch circle, or a lot of people fighting a catch circle. I have gone to where I have 99% drags. I'm not fighting the catch circle down there like you would at home, you know, because if I run a drag at home in South Dakota, I'm going to be looking 2 counties over for that title before he hangs up. You know, but I would not run the 450s at home. They're not going to come through that snow. You get a little skid of snow and then it drifts, and you know you're just not going to catch them. But down there, I'm dealing with dirt 90% of the time, and so I can get away with that. When you're running those drags, you put 100 drags in the back of your UTV, or 60 drags back there, and 60 jakes back there, and UTVs going down the trail like this until you get it unloaded. You put 60 MB450s back there in your drags, and you're not hauling around near as much weight, and the holding capacity of that trap is all put against his jake any day of the week for a coyote. I mean, it's going to hold every coyote that puts his foot in there. And I will say, my cat catch going to that lighter pan tension has gone through the roof. It makes it trapping the same ground. You know, I can look back at my paperwork and I can see where my cat catch has gone up, running that 450 versus a 550 or the 650s that I've gotten away from entirely. They're just not even mountain tunnels at all anymore. But it's that trap size is really relative to your environment that you're trapping in.
Ricky, so
Go ahead.
you say your traps, drags in South Dakota, you have a hard time finding them?
I don't set them there.
I know. I can cure that for you. You get number 2, straight link chain, 112 feet of trap. You won't have a problem getting it.
Rick, what do you run in Texas? And if you trap coyotes in Iowa, same, or what do you do?
Yeah, I'm doing the same. They don't trap coyotes in Iowa anymore because it snows and rains and it's freezing weather. It's no fun.
That's smart.
Pack my suitcase, go to Texas, and it's fun. I'm running leggings. I'm not leggings. No BS. 2 coil, number 2 spring. When I started buying them, I got number 3 spring, a little heavier trap. And like Lisa says, with a smaller trap like 10 10, you're going to catch no cats. I found that out, so I went to a number 2 coil, just 2 springs on the traps. And when you're working in the sand, as long as it doesn't rain, in Texas, you're good to go.
No, I was just going to say, if it rains in Texas, you might as well have 3 feet of snow.
When it rained in Kansas, we were stuck. We couldn't leave. We could only drive on the asphalt. We couldn't drive those ceviche roads or whatever they call them. However you say it. I don't have a cowboy hat on. I can't pronounce it. Ceviche. Did you guys want to pipe in about trap size at all?
If you're just talking catching coyotes, and that's the only thing we're talking about, bigger's better. There's no doubt in my mind. Having a bigger target area, having a big screen covered pan, bigger's just better. And there's no getting around it. But there's other things to take into consideration. All right, on my ranch is primarily all cattle now. We don't have a lot of necessarily predator damage unless it's specifically in the spring and animal having problems or things like that. Like I said, the population's kept down, but outfitting is huge. All right, a lot of these ranchers make a good living off having hunters and stuff come, so their deer and their antelope and their elk populations are really important to them. All right, so I have to take that into consideration. And I'd love a huge trap with a big screen pan cover and 4-coiled, but I can't be catching other non-target animals and having them dislocate shoulders and things like that. You would think that big brood of a 250-pound mule deer buck, all right, is a big old tough guy, but once you take him out of that trap, all right, he's probably dead somewhere within 100 yards. All right, so you got to take that stuff into consideration. So not just in that remote area like that where you're protecting wild game, but also in your backyard trap. And I go back to New York now; it's a completely different situation as well. So again, I have to be a little bit conscious there. Yeah, them pets aren't supposed to be running there. They don't have permission to be there. They are trespassing. These people aren't supposed to be walking through there, but it happens. All right, and if we want to keep from having a black eye, I really don't need to be using a huge 4-coil large trap where I think that I'm likely to catch somebody's pet because I know that I'm sitting within 200 yards of their house. So as far as catching coyotes, bigger is better in my opinion, but you have a lot of other things you have to take into, I'm sure with these guys in Texas, you're probably on wild high fence places. So you got to watch what you're catching there.
Well, and that's something too, like even a MP450 will hold a oryx scimitar. You're talking a 350-pound animal, and it'll hold that animal. So, I mean, if you're running bigger traps than that, you're going to catch more of those exotics, and you got to be very, very aware, conscious of where you're setting traps, and I mean, the bigger they are, the more of that stuff you're going to catch, and you aren't going to be there very long. If you're catching a $10,000 sable or whatever the heck they are.
Some kind of African animal. I don't even know what they are, but
Funny thing is, I don't either. I see them, I don't know what they are.
I see them too, I don't know what they are. Trap size too, I'm kind of like, I guess I have both sizes. When you're in civilized country, you need to be using more smaller traps. I like a big trap. Well, because I have them, you probably don't remember, 1978, the Montgomery dog was in Ben Sterling modified it for a Mormon. That's what I'm still using. They're old, but they were good. But I like them because I don't make a lot of whole sets. I'm pretty much a whole flat set 90% of the time. So it's an open pattern, so I got a bigger kill area there, I would say. But if I use my small traps, I'm using more trench sets and whole sets to block them in to get caught that way. So you can go both ways, but it depends on where you're at and what you're around. Because if you're in public, experiences a lot of it. You don't want to catch somebody's bird over, but won't feel like he went through. So I prefer a bigger trap, but not a monster trap. But 6-inch jaw spread with definitely offset jaws and wide jaws, and I guess there's 4-coil all of mine, but somewhat. But depends what you use. But there's a lot of good. There's so many good traps out there now that weren't here 30 years ago.
We talked about it yesterday, water trapping, and I kind of drew an analogy between the way I started growing my coyote trapping arsenal was like everybody. I'd buy 12 traps from this guy and 15 from this guy and 30 from this guy. So I had all these really good coyote traps, but they were all different. All had different chain setups. And I found myself reaching into my bins and passing up a Montgomery number 3 or a number 3 Bridger. What hat do I have on? Bridger. So, and I was grabbing a Jake or a Sterling or whatever it was. So I'm like, why do I even have these traps in here? So I always tell guys, if you can, whatever it is, I find if you're doing production, you're doing numbers. Man, I kneel down at the set, and it's like muscle memory. My sets are all identical. My traps are all identical. The chain links are identical. And when we trap in Kansas, Jim Smith and I, we run the exact same jigs. Mine have twist link chain and Sterling swivels, and his have MD and straight link, and that's how we know the difference. But we might pull in and have 9 coyotes, and he might have 7 of them. I got to remake his sets. So we do things the exact same. And I would tell you that it's a little thing, but I would really recommend you find one trap that you like and just use the heck out of it. And if you're going for numbers, if you're setting 7 traps out back on your own farm, it ain't really a big deal. But it's just one of those little things that, you know, when I talk to guys, all these things that we do, all these little things, all add up to something really big. And whether it's dog usage or using the same trap or all these different things that maybe would help you, and none of them will double your catch overnight, but all of them together are building blocks and very well may have you bringing more coyotes home or whatever animal is at the end of the year. And that's kind of how it looks. None of these things are earth-shattering, you know, revelation type things in my mind, but they're all building blocks to get you to the goal line of something a little bigger and better. I don't know if you guys take that. That was really good though. I thought that was really resonated with everybody. I hope so. I'm joking. I made it all up right on the spot.
But the one building block bigger than all of them, and that's work ethic. No matter what you gotta work hard.
We're going to talk about that for a second, but yeah, everybody's looking for the silver bullet, right? It ain't here. It's hard work, drive, dedication, focus. I did a demo at the PTA a few weeks ago, and it was well attended. There's a lot of people there, and I talked about baits and lures that I used. And when I was done with it, every question I had was, "What was that lure you used?" That's what everybody wanted to know. It's not that. I promise you, it's not that. But anyhow, go ahead.